After Ragnarok, the world was left a vast field of ash and desolation, a reflection of battles that devastated even the gods themselves. Thor, still standing amidst the rubble, carries in his eyes the weight of a world that has lost its glory. The confrontation with Jormungandr was titanic, a fight in which thunder roared for the last time, but not without cost. Mjolnir, his legendary hammer, was destroyed, not just as a weapon, but as an extension of who Thor is. Without it, the god feels as if the very strength that defined him has been torn apart, leaving a void that resonates both in his soul and in the realms he swore to protect. The pain of losing Mjolnir, however, is accompanied by a forgotten mystery. As Thor surveys the wreckage of the ancient world, an ancient memory awakens in his mind, a prophecy whispered in ages past, ignored amid the chaos of the days leading up to Ragnarok. There is talk of a last hammer, a divine weapon forged not by the simple fires of the forges, but by fragments of Yggdrasil, the world tree, and the essence of the gods themselves. These artists said that the legends held the power to restore balance to the worlds, but its whereabouts have been lost to time. Was the prophecy merely a myth, or a last hope left for days like these? Thor knows that mourning amid the ashes offers no answers. He will need to face more than monsters and enemies. He will need to revisit his own roots, confront his identity, and question what it means to be a god without his weapon. The journey for the last hammer will take him beyond what any map of the 9 realms can show, into the deepest secrets of creation. But that is only the beginning, is it not? After all, the thunder always roars again. Thor, now stripped of the absolute power of Mjolnir, feels vulnerable as never before. Without the hammer in his hand, the weight of the thunder seems distant, almost untouchable. He is still a god, of course, but his strength seems diluted, like a flame without air to fuel its light. For the first time, Thor walks not as a giant among mortals, but as a warrior who must fight to find a new purpose. And it is precisely this emptiness that drives him to begin a journey unlike any other, a pilgrimage through the 9 realms in search of the legendary materials needed to forge the last hammer. Each realm presents its own challenge, a test of Thor's new condition. In Midgard, he finds only silence, with the human world reduced to ruins after Ragnarok. There are no mortals to celebrate his deeds, only an echo of better times. In Elfheim, the once vibrant and luminous land of the elves, he must negotiate with spirits who distrust even a god. If you desire a shard of Yggdrasil, they warn, you must prove that you seek not just power, but redemption. In Muspelheim, he will face flames that even he cannot fully withstand, striving to obtain the primordial fire needed to temper the divine steel. With each step, Thor must learn to use more than his strength. He is now tested in cunning, resilience, and humility. At the same time, Thor begins to realize that the journey is not just about gathering materials. It is about rebuilding himself. The hardships shape his understanding of what it means to be the protector of the realms. He understands that strength lies not in a weapon or in muscle alone, but in the ability to rise, even when he feels broken. But the trials are far from over. With each realm, Thor realizes that the balance between the worlds is more unstable than ever. And the last hammer may be more than just a solution. It may be the last hope of preventing complete collapse. In the darkest reaches of Helheim, where light dares scarcely touch, a figure emerges from the shadows. Fenrik, Loki's most cunning and lethal descendant. Inheriting his father's treacherous intelligence and the ferocity of his bloodline, Fenrik harbors a deep hatred for the gods of Asgard, particularly Thor, the murderer of Jormungandr and responsible for Loki's downfall at Ragnarok. He grew up fed stories of revenge, with the promise that one day Loki's offspring would rewrite the fate of the 9 realms. Now, with the destruction of Mjolnir, Fenric sees his golden opportunity to prevent the creation of the last hammer and seize the power to shape the worlds in his image. Fenric is no ordinary foe. He is a brilliant strategist, able to predict moves with the precision of a divine chess player. He relies not only on physical strength, though he possesses the ferocity of a wolf and the strength to face even the gods, but also on his ability to manipulate allies and enemies alike. His followers are a reflection of his nature, beings corrupted by the remnants of the chaos left by Ragnarok, including fallen warriors and shadowy creatures that dwell between the realms. Through promises of power and a new order, Fenric has assembled an army that moves in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike Thor and steal the fragments needed for the last hammer. But Fenric is not just an ordinary villain. He is a reflection of what Thor could become if he succumbed to pride and lust for power. He believes that the world as it existed before Ragnarok was a failure, an endless cycle of war and suffering. For him, the only way forward is to destroy everything and start from scratch, creating a world where he is the center of power, the architect of a new reality. Fenric is not just after the last hammer. He wants to shape the realms according to his own rules, and to do so, he is willing to risk everything, even the complete destruction of the 9 realms. Thor's journey, now without the weight of Mjolnir in his hands and with a transformed appearance, begins as a solitary march, marked by the pain of loss and the weight of responsibility. He knew that in order to forge the last hammer, he would need to gather materials that would not only withstand the strength of the gods, but also carry the essence of creation and balance of the 9 realms. His first stop was Helheim, the realm of the dead, where an eternal flame burned amidst the perpetual cold. This flame, which never went out, would be the first ingredient needed to give life to the new weapon. In Helheim, Thor faced challenges like never before. The biting cold seemed to devour his strength, and the voices of the dead whispered the sins of the past in his ears. Queen Hel, daughter of Loki and ruler of the realm, appeared to him in her majestic and terrifying form, one side of her face raw, the other a bare skull. Hel regarded him with a mixture of contempt and curiosity, mocking his frailty without Mjolnir. "You are but a shadow of your former self, Thor," she said. But seeing the determination in his eyes, Hel decided to put him to the test. He would have to cross the Valley of Lost Souls, a land filled with angry spirits, to find the eternal flame at the heart of a sealed crypt. The journey through the valley was a physical and emotional test. Spectral spirits attacked Thor at every step, trying to break his mind with visions of failure and death. But he pressed on, driven by a desire to restore order to the realms. Upon reaching the crypt, he faced the Keeper of the Flames, an entity of fire and shadow who tested the worthy. Without Mjolnir, Thor was forced to rely on his strength and cunning alone. He used the remains of his cloak to contain the flame in an enchanted vial, sealing the first step of his journey. With the flame in hand, Thor set out for Svartalfheim, the realm of the dwarfs, where legendary blacksmiths forged weapons that even the gods feared. Thor knew that the dwarf's skill would be indispensable in forging divine materials. But Svartalfheim was no longer the same after Ragnarok. The realm was divided between rival clans competing for dwindling resources, and Thor would need to negotiate with Dvalin, the leader of the largest clan, to gain his help. Upon arrival, Thor was greeted with distrust. Without Mjolnir, many dwarfs saw him as a fallen god, powerless to protect them. Dvalin, however, was willing to listen, but the price was high. Thor would have to defeat an iron dragon that terrorized the clan's minds. Without divine weapons, Thor improvised, using armor forged by the dwarfs and his brute strength. The battle was brutal. The dragon was resistant to conventional blows, and Thor had to trick the creature into falling into a pit of lava. Impressed by his victory, Dvalin gave Thor an ancient mold capable of melting any material, even the most divine. Finally, Thor set out for Vanaheim, the realm of the Vani, in search of the spirit of Frey, who guarded a divine metal known as Gleipnirian. This metal, according to legend, was created from the essence of impossible elements, the sound of silence, a woman's beard, and the breath of a fish. However, reaching Frey would not be easy. After Ragnarok, the Vani were reclusive, distrustful even of the other gods. To enter the domain where Frey's spirit rested, Thor would need to gain the trust of the guardians of the realm. The Vani demanded that Thor perform a purification ritual, in which he would have to offer something of personal value. Thor reluctantly cut off a lock of his golden hair, a symbol of his pride and strength. After the ritual, he was led to Frey, whose spirit radiated a warm, serene light. Frey revealed that the divine metal was hidden in the roots of Yggdrasil, but only a worthy heart could extract it without destroying it. Thor, with humility and determination, was able to touch the metal, which seemed to pulse with a living energy, as if recognizing its cause. With the eternal flame, the dwarven mold, and the divine metal in hand, Thor knew that his journey was far from over. Each step brought him closer to his goal, but also brought him closer to the inevitable confrontation with Fenrik. The fate of the 9 realms hung in the balance, and Thor, now more aware of his limitations, was determined to forge the last hammer and restore balance. Fenrik, Loki's cunning descendant, emerges from the shadows just as Thor leaves the realms for his journey. Gifted with a razor-sharp mind and his father's magical heritage, he sees the thunder god's absence as the perfect opportunity to begin his ascension. Knowing that the last hammer holds the key to recreating the 9 realms under his own rules, Fenrik devises meticulous plans to capture Thor. He uses his cunning to manipulate unlikely allies and turn former enemies into pawns on his board. Under his influence, creatures from Helheim are awakened, and the dark elves of Svartalfheim are coerced into stalking Thor's footsteps, fueling his path with calculated ambushes. As Thor advances on his quest, Fenrik leaves a trail of destruction to bring about the chaos he so desires. He invades Midgard, striking terror among the mortals who once looked to Thor for protection. Entire villages are consumed by fire, and rumors of Loki's heir begin to spread like a plague. In Jotunheim, Fenrik breaks ancient peace pacts, awakening the frost giants to the impending war. Each act is not only a blow to the 9 realms, but also a message to Thor. You cannot protect what you left behind. Even in Asgard, the realm still mourning Ragnarok, Fenrik sends emissaries bearing symbols of chaos, challenging the new leadership and sowing fear among the remaining gods. But Fenrik's true coup comes in Vanaheim. Upon discovering that Thor seeks Frey's spirit and the divine metal it guards, Fenrik launches a devastating offensive against the realm. He manipulates the balance of Vani magic, corrupting the natural forces and transforming the fertile land into a landscape of destruction. The Vani, long known for their connection to life and nature, find themselves weakened, with many falling prey to Fenrik's traps. Despite everything, Frey's spirit remains protected, bravely resisting the advance of Loki's descendant. Fenrik, frustrated, vows to return stronger, but not before casting doubt on Thor's journey. He leaves an ominous message: every step you take, you are closer to losing all that is left. Fenrik is not just a physical foe. He is the embodiment of a mental and emotional challenge for Thor. The chaos he leaves behind is calculated to shake the god of thunder's spirit, forcing him to question whether the quest for the last hammer is the right choice or a dangerous distraction from his responsibilities. Fenrik remains in the shadows, but his presence is felt everywhere, like a storm waiting to break. After the devastation of Ragnarok, Thor's journey is not only physical, but deeply internal. As he travels the 9 realms in search of the materials for the last hammer, pain and guilt haunt him like shadows that never go away. In moments of solitude, when he looks to the horizon, he no longer sees the same confidence in the eyes that once shone like lightning. He asks himself, am I, the protector of the realms, to blame for the death of so many? The weight of his decisions during the final battle, where so many heroes perished, begins to corrode his soul. The sacrifice of his companions, friends, and even gods like Balder and Heimdall becomes an unbearable burden, and Mjolnir, the hammer that represented his power, is now destroyed, along with so many lives he swore to protect. As Thor walks through unknown lands, he feels the void that the loss of his hammer has left in his essence. Mjolnir has always been more than a weapon. It was an extension of his strength, his identity as the defender of the realms. Without it, he feels more vulnerable, as if his purpose has been undermined. During a night in Vanaheim, when the starlight barely touches the ground, Thor falls into deep thought. He remembers the look on Balder's face before he fell, and Heimdall's last words. The emptiness in his chest grows. Perhaps I have failed. Doubt sets in, and for a moment he sees himself not as the god of thunder, but as a man lost, without direction. Yet guilt is an insidious force. It does not allow him to stagnate, but rather propels him forward, challenging him to prove that he can still be the protector he once was. He realizes, as he traverses the realms, that doubt should not be his prison, but his fuel. Each step he takes brings him closer to the last hammer, and perhaps closer to restoring not only the balance of the worlds, but also the confidence he has lost in himself. I can't go back, he thinks. The only way to redemption is to move forward, but the pain of the past lingers, reminding him that his journey will not be just an external battle against the forces of chaos. It will be, above all, an internal war against the guilt that threatens to destroy even the most powerful god. With each passing day, doubt and guilt follow him, but Thor knows that his struggle will not be in vain. The last hammer, the key to restoring balance, is also the key to his own redemption. Thor's journey, already marked by the weight of guilt and the tireless search for the last hammer, is not a solitary one. Throughout his journey through the 9 realms, he finds help from the figures who once fought alongside him. It is not only the gods who offer to help him, but also a new generation of warriors, willing to follow the god of thunder in his mission to restore balance to the worlds. But, as in every great hero story, dangers come not only from enemies, but also from within. The unexpected betrayals of figures close to Thor will test his confidence and what remains of his strength. In the first moments of the journey, when Thor arrives in Asgard, he is welcomed by old friends who, with the same loyalty as before, present themselves as allies. Sif, his faithful companion, now wiser and more reserved, joins him, ready to fight alongside her brother-in-arms, as in times past. She reminds him of the strength he has always had, even without the hammer. Volstagg, Fandral, and Hogun, the valiant warriors who survived the destruction of Asgard, are the first to pledge their loyalty to Thor. The trust between them is deep, forged in the battles they have faced together. You are not alone, Thor, Sif says with a sad smile, her hand squeezing his. The lands and kingdoms still take pride in the deeds we have accomplished. We will not allow the hammer to be the only weapon you need. The union of his former companions is a balm for the god, and he feels renewed strength. However, not all alliances are so clear. What Thor does not know is that, among these allies, a shadow of doubt spreads. Even among those who share the deepest bonds, there is a growing uneasiness, a silent distrust that Thor cannot perceive. And so the new generation emerges. Thor meets, along his journey, young warriors who, like him, lost everything in Ragnarok and seek revenge, or redemption, or a new purpose. These warriors, with their sharp weapons and determined eyes, see in Thor not just a god, but a leader. Among them, fearless and lion-hearted, are the children of Thor's former friends, such as Volstag's son Magnus and Freyr, a young warrior from Vanaheim who grew up hearing stories of Thor's exploits. They are a reflection of who Thor once was, and so he feels an immediate connection to them. "I am the heritage of our fathers, Thor," says Magnus, his voice deep and determined, "and their deeds will not be forgotten while we live." With these young warriors at his side, Thor begins to see a new hope on the horizon. He realizes that the future can still be forged, and that perhaps the key to restoring balance lies not only with the last hammer, but with the legacy of all the people who have fought through the centuries. However, like any mentor who is tasked with guiding new heroes, Thor soon finds himself burdened with the responsibility of protecting them. And this is where the complications begin. As Thor progresses on his journey, he begins to realize that even among those he trusted most, a silent betrayal is creeping in. Sif, though always loyal, begins to distance herself emotionally. Her coldness becomes more evident, and a tension forms between her and Thor, a tension that he does not know how to resolve. Volstagg, with his generous heart and unquestionable bravery, also begins to act strangely, especially at critical moments, when Thor needs his help the most. Small gestures, misplaced words, make Thor begin to question the loyalty of his former friends. But the biggest surprises come from where he least expects them. Young Magnus, Volstagg's son, the one who seemed to be the renewal of courage and honor, begins to act strangely. In a battle against a horde of enemies, Magnus retreats when he should advance, and his subsequent actions make Thor suspicious. The final straw comes when Magnus, seemingly unintentionally, reveals a secret that Thor never imagined. In a casual conversation, as they prepare to face an army of Fenric's minions, Magnus speaks of an ancient pact made with forces that should not be touched. A pact that could change the course of the battle, but that would also put at risk everything Thor fought to protect. The god of thunder feels the pain of betrayal in his chest, like a lightning bolt cutting through his soul. "Magnus, are you making a deal with them?" Thor asks with restrained anger, but it shines through in his voice. "You don't understand what you're doing. This is not who we are. This is not what our honor demands." Magnus, with his head down, tries to justify his actions, but the feeling of betrayal is already ingrained in Thor. He feels powerless, unable to prevent the young warriors from getting involved with forces that threaten the kingdoms and that, for a moment, don't even care about what the future holds. It is in moments like these that Thor finds himself in the position of a leader torn between what tradition demands and the reality that perhaps not all warriors at his side share the same goal. And as tensions mount, more alliances begin to crumble. Freyr, the young warrior from Vanaheim who Thor has entrusted with a secret vital to his journey, also reveals a side of himself that Thor could not have foreseen. She has her own interest in forging the last hammer, but not to restore the realms, but rather to use the weapon as a tool to dominate the 9 realms, putting her own ambition ahead of Thor's cause. The new generation, with its hopes and ideals, is not immune to the poison of ambition. And so, as Thor fights to restore balance to the world, he realizes that there are many other interests at stake alongside him. Not only the fate of the 9 realms, but also the power that each of the warriors desires for themselves. Betrayals, broken alliances, and the threat of a future without hope of redemption become an even greater challenge than Fenric's hordes. The last hammer is no longer just a divine weapon. It is the symbol of an empire that many seek to control. And as Thor, with his old companions and new allies, makes his way through the gathering storm, he finds himself on the brink of a painful truth. Even the most faithful can be corrupted, and the most promising alliances can be destroyed by personal interests. But will the god of thunder find a way to restore the trust that the gods and warriors have lost, or will he too be lost in the game of power and betrayal? The future is uncertain, but Thor, for all his flaws and doubts, knows that his mission is more important than ever, and he, as always, will not back down. After crossing kingdoms and facing unimaginable challenges, Thor has still not managed to gather all the fragments necessary to forge the last hammer. The weight of responsibility and the pressure of an increasingly uncertain destiny begin to consume his strength. When the last hope seems to slip away, a dark news reaches the ears of the god of thunder. Fenrik, the descendant of Loki, with his insatiable thirst for power, is approaching, advancing mercilessly towards the last bastion of resistance against his intentions of destruction and reshaping the world. Thor, without his new weapon, finds himself cornered by the imminent threat of Fenrik, who has already gained allies and destroyed kingdoms throughout his journey. With a defiant look on his face, Thor feels the pressure of an inevitable confrontation. It is no longer just a matter of gathering the fragments, but of protecting what still remains. The sky prepares for thunder, but without full confidence in his restored power. The god of thunder will have to overcome himself and confront the enemy with what he still has: his courage, cunning, and the strength of his legacy. The land lay in ruins, Fenrik's fury devastating everything in its path. The war between worlds seemed to be at its climax, and the sky above the battlefield was opaque, as if the universe itself felt the weight of impending destruction. Thor, without his hammer, without his greatest source of power, approached the great battle. His heart heavy, marked by guilt and regret, he was about to face the son of Loki, the enemy who wanted to remake the world in his own way. He knew that without the power of the last hammer, his chances were limited. But Thor was not just the god of thunder. He was the defender of the realms, and his mission had always been to protect, even in the darkest moments. The cutting wind that blew across the battlefields carried with it the essence of chaos. Fenrik stood there, waiting, imposing and implacable. With eyes burning like those of an ancient monster, he raised his hands to the sky, summoning forces Thor had never imagined seeing. Lightning danced around him, distorting reality as if space and time itself were being rewritten. Fenrik wanted more than destruction. He wanted to shape the future in his own image, shattering everything Thor and the other heroes had fought to protect. But Thor was not about to give up. He could feel the familiar bolts of lightning, though he no longer had full control of their power. But the last of his bravery, his courage, still pulsed strong in his veins. It wasn't just his hammer that made him a god. It was who he was inside, the strength of his will. The battle began with a deafening roar, Thor's thunder echoing across the field even without his hammer. He struck first, using the strength of his body and the combat skills honed over centuries. Thor's blows were like storms, but Fenrik deflected them with uncanny speed. He was not just a physical foe. His mind, his cunning, was his true weapon. With every step Thor took, Fenrik was one step ahead, manipulating the elements and warping the very space around him. At the height of the confrontation, Fenrik used dark magic to weaken Thor, summoning the pain of losing Mjolnir, causing the god of thunder to be consumed by inner torment. Thor fell to his knees, the lightning around him fading as the pain of his guilt gnawed at him. But deep inside, something still burned, the flame of his true nature. He rose, more determined than ever, refusing to allow Fenrik to destroy what remained of the realms. The battle was a frenzied dance of strength and magic. Fenrik seemed invincible, but Thor, with indomitable courage, used his wits, his battle experience, and his skill with the hammer, albeit without it, to finally find an opening. In a last-ditch effort, Thor called upon the power of his ancestry, of his fallen comrades, of his bloodline, and with one decisive blow, he used not brute force but a move of pure cunning, turning Fenric's magic back against himself. The ground shook as Fenric's wave of magical energy turned against his own creation, crushing him with the fury of what he had unleashed. The battle ended with the fall of Loki's descendant, a heavy silence spreading across the devastated landscape. But Thor knew the fight was not over. He had defeated Fenric, but the price of victory was high. The last hammer had not yet been forged. The destruction left by Fenric had yet to be repaired, and the cycle of restoration had only just begun. Thor, weary but victorious, looked to the horizon. His journey was not over. He would have to press on, complete what he had begun, and rebuild what had been lost. And with one last look across the devastated fields, he knew the true battle was yet to come. Thor prepared to forge the last hammer, but at the same time, he knew that the journey was far from over. A new era was about to begin, but this story would not end there. He knew that the challenges ahead would be immense, and he, more than ever, would need all the strength that the Nine Realms could offer. Thor's story was far from being written completely. The next chapter, and perhaps the last, was yet to come. Did you like this story? Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next epic sagas. The journey continues.